Yes, we're live. Yes, thank you, everyone. Welcome to Journey to Bliss. As you know, I am Miss. Oh, wait, hold on. We got a little bit of an echo. Let me get rid of this echo. Okay, let's see here. Do you guys still hear the echo?
I don't hear it.
No, you don't hear it? Okay, I
Testing.
think technology today, I tell you, technology. Okay. All right, good. Okay. So yeah. So I am Miss Bliss, and we have with us this evening Catherine Davis and Diana Farr. And tonight's topic is going to be about the root chakra. So some information you probably already know about, and we hope to be providing some new additional information to assist you guys in working with the root chakra. I want to post an advertisement from a young lady that I actually support, and this is her flyer here. So this is a event that she's planning. It is Two Hearts, One Love. This is a virtual matchmaking event that starts on March 30th. There's a phone number, there's an email, thephoenixexperience@gmail.com. So for those of you who are looking for love in all the right places, feel free to come and participate. Hey Shaka, how you doing? Good evening, Shaka. Family Shaka is in Dominican Republic. He actually was able to provide a recommendation of a beautiful beach while I was in Dominican Republic. Thank you so much, Shaka. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I'm very grateful. So that's the matchmaking. I have another sister who makes jewelry. She's a creative artist. I'm going to do her promotion. So that's Tanisha. You can follow her on Instagram, and she actually makes jewelry. She's creative with her artwork in terms of like clothing, sneakers. She makes waist beads also. So yeah, go check her out. Follow her on Instagram. And as of course, you guys know, I'm going to be promoting my tea, Bliss Love Tea. So here we go.
When you smile, I'm enchanted. When you kiss me, I can't stand it. I'm in paradise. Your touch is just like satin. Girl, you make my whole life happen. When I look into your eyes.
That tea actually goes perfect with that matchmaking event. So y'all make sure y'all get some of that tea if you go into the matchmaking event. Thank you, Shaka. Thank you for being on tonight, Shaka. So I'm just gonna do like a small introduction or about what we're gonna be speaking tonight, and then we're gonna let Catherine and Diana Farr continue on. So many of you may or may not know your root chakra is located at the base of your spine. It's associated with the color red. So a lot of times when you see people working with the root chakra, they're always connecting it to the color red. It's also connected to our feeling of survival, in connection to like maybe food or shelter, emotions, feeling like the fight or flight instinct, the physical safety of feeling like, whether you're secure and everything is okay, your safety, in your surroundings around you, which occasionally can kind of actually be more of an opinion or perception, because a lot of times we may feel like we're unsafe, but we are actually safe. But we get into this feeling like it, and it becomes sort of a physicality for us. So we start to feel what we're not actually experiencing, meaning that we are safe, but we don't actually feel safe. It's connected to the planet Earth. Like, so it's good for if you need grounding, if you're connected to the earth. It's also connected to your ancestry, your bloodlines, your lineage. And so that's just some of the basic things that probably everyone knows. And I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we'll be talking about this evening. So, Diana Farr, we could start with you.
Um, um, as beings, our true state does not have form. Nothing in its essential state has form. Energy is the essence of life in general, and it's the foundation of the physical world. So when that energy comes from into a state where it does have form, as far as the physical body is concerned, it has to, for us to be in this realm, we have to have structure, or we do have structure. We don't necessarily have to have structure. So the energy of life in general is one thing. And that energy, when it's in its creative mode, takes on duality. It expresses duality that people are familiar with as yin and yang energy. And we're constantly interacting with the balancing of those two forces within everything in life. It exists within our physical body. It exists with everything. That life is literally held together by duality. You can't have an inside of a cup without an outside. And within our bodies, or within the energy field that our body extends from, that energy takes on many forms. At the root level is the home of the feminine, Kundalini, Shakti. That energy resides at the crown level as Shiva. And our lives, as we're living, we're seeking, our experiences are balancing those two forces, depending on how we're able to live at this level. So the root chakra has to do with gravity. It has to do with it in the body. It comes up from the feet through the legs, the pelvic floor. It rules over the large intestines. And it has this dual function in that it manages both the energy of the starting point of creative energy, our very beingness, and also destruction. And that's where it resides. It resides in that place right between the genitals and the anus. So the genitals contain creative energy, reproductive energy, and the anus is the opening of where we release waste. And the balancing of those two experiences manifest in our daily lives. We should be emergent beings where out of creativity, something new is always going to emerge. But it also creates a byproduct of waste. So that is a constant in growth and development, that we grow, we learn, we have experiences, and we release. And these are biological functions. One of the functions is autophagy, where the body gets rid of cells that it no longer needs. Regeneration is a part of that process. In terms of the everyday experience, what I think people can feel most strongly is the hormonal experience of the chakra. Because when we're in survival mode as compared to living mode, it creates a different physiological experience. When we're in survival mode, we're releasing we're releasing hormones that prepare us to have to survive. And that's a very profound biophysiological experience. The heart rate increases, the eyes dilate, the pulse increases, we release adrenaline and cortisol into the bloodstream. And and that's a reactionary state, which creates a downward trigger that's expelled. That has a use, it has a function, as long as we are able to regulate and return back to a more balanced state. When the root chakra, or that aspect of our being, is not operating as it was designed to, which is very common in present society, people are living in their sympathetic nervous system. They're living in fight or flight, where the context, and you explained it very well in the beginning, where you said that people can respond as though it is a survival circumstance when it's just a difference of opinion. Or so being in the reactionary state is a physiological event, it's a hormonal event, it's an energetic event, and it dissipates energy. It dissipates energy. Shakti cannot rise up and experience union with her mate when we're constantly in a reactionary state. We polarize. We experience ourselves as dual. Life becomes an experience as outside and inside, which it is. But there's also a point where we're connected to everything, and we can get separated from that experience. And in everyday living, this impacts people's finances, whether or not they are able to be themselves for a living, whether or not they're free, that they're doing something that's resonant with their qualities as a human being, that they are able to be creative in their lives, they are experiencing emergent consciousness, and that they are having synchronicities. They're having experiences that translate into what you need to live in this dimension. Finances, resources, connections, all of those things emerge from that. When that is not the case, and reading this energy has been a large part of my work for a long time, and root and sacral and solar, the lower chakras, and I'd really like to hear Catherine's input on this in terms of her work, that's where most people have energy that is not operating in alignment with themselves, with their connection to earth, with their connection to spirit. It's at that level that almost to the extent that I can say that it's in epidemic proportions, that people are not, because this starts before we're born. If the mother was in a stressed out state, then when the child is born, the child is born in survival mode. And we know that, allopathic medicine describes childbirth as trauma, and just the environment that we're born in, the way we're born, to have the feeling of I am and I'm safe in the world and I can emerge and I can be an emergent experience is not the case for many people. So there's a tremendous need for healing in that area.
Yes.
There's a tremendous need in that area. But I wanted to hear, what Catherine has an input in terms of her work as working with chi energy for many, many, many years.
Mm.
Um, have you seen what has been your experience in that area?
Well, for me, it is the foundation of our humanness in a way. And in Qigong, the understanding is a little bit different than the chakras, though they are very comparative and equal. It's just conceptually, it's slightly different in that in traditional Chinese medicine, Qigong, we have dantians, which are called elixir fields. So the root chakra would be included in the lower dantian, which includes the various points at the, like you said, the bottom of the torso, the the bottom tip of the spine, and there's a point on the spine that's back from the navel. It includes the navel, but essentially it speaks of that energy as being, like you said, connected to the physiology of your parents' experiences that you might have inherited or experienced in the womb. But what's key to it for me is that there's a way that it connects you to the primordial chi,
Mhm.
which is the you before birth, before coming into this earthly life experience. So part of that reconnecting is to work through the energy to connect deep into the field of the earth, that energy that replenishes and gives birth to all life on the planet as far as the natural world is concerned. It also takes you into your primordial blueprint. So whatever your original design was, you can reach back and pull that energy into your body and into your experience so that you can begin to remind your cellular structure how it's supposed to function.
I'm so glad
And
you
it can remind your awareness that you are more than this physical presence on earth, that we have a much greater capacity of our being. So you want to ground in those areas.
yes.
And where we get into a lot of trouble is the experiences post conception. That's where we get most of our trouble. Some of it comes through the primordial and maybe past life experiences, but most of what really gets us into trouble is having parents that were not grounded or balanced
Mm-hmm.
or understanding of how to nurture life. And then we are born into a world that has no understanding of how to nurture life. And we grow up in distorted ways. So I think part of it is reaching into the earth, which has the capacity to grow a tree or an herb. Into that natural phenomena of the earth is very much connected to the root chakra. So, how do birds function? How do um, animals in the wild function? How do plants grow naturally in a forest? So, you want to connect to how life actually functions on earth. You want to connect to your primordial presence because there's a real wisdom there. And you have to trace back through, I would say, the DNA,
Mm-hmm.
not just your experiences, but if your parents and grandparents were traumatized, we also inherit that.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to understand where all that intertwining is. So the work that I do is allowing people to trace into those different areas to first plug back in, because mostly we're disconnected, and then to begin to allow that understanding, but also to deal with whatever the stagnations and disturbances are. So you could think of like the root chakra or the lower dantian as kind of your operating system. And we were born without the manual, so we don't really know how to operate our own operating system. And the root is the foundation of that. That's how I would respond to that.
I'm so glad that you said that we can recalibrate, that the energy template is there. Um, what I want to interject here for the audience is that life is meaningful, and very often, particularly when people come to me, they're in a quandary as to what it is they should do to make their life work. And our experiences, like now there's a lot of conversation about manifestation, and it tends to sort of overlook that manifesting is a byproduct of who we are. You can't not do that. It's not something you have to learn how to do.
Exactly.
But because we don't identify with or desire what's showing up, to be able to make the connection and to immerse yourself into and draw meaning from and grow from what is actually happening in your life, because it's not a mystery. The universe isn't asking us trick questions. It's that if there is an issue with finances, there are some practical things that we're being directed to that we might consider. And the society in which we live tends to give us, well, for one thing, we're educated, as Kathy said, that we're educated away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And very often we're raised away from that. But the conversation that we're having right now on manifestation in terms of our ability to choose and be is not the technology the ancients left for us, and it's also not supported by the science of our time. A great deal of life is deterministic. You can see that in someone's chart, what they have a predisposition to experience. And they can reproduce this in the lab. They can set up human beings in a situation where they're playing chess and predict what moves people are going to make. So, and it's interesting that has not become a part of the narrative. It will. Eventually it will. We'll get there. But I'm mentioning that because the root chakra has to do with being very grounded in reality. Mm-hmm. And the reality of what's going on, what is actually going on in your life. Mm-hmm. What is happening in your life on a daily basis, and what are some appropriate practical responses that you can have for that. Now, albeit that is a challenge in today's society, because people are bombarded with so much information that is confusing, that can deflect from the matter at hand. But the truth is that we have the root chakra, and our connection to earth, to the earth, is an empirical one. By that, I mean it's concrete and it's physical. In yoga, we talk about Yoga talks about, and so does the Chinese alchemy, meridians of energy that flow through life and flow through the earth and flow through us. We're literally living in a system that we exchange information with. In medical science, that's called your that registers intuition is biologically your enteric nervous system, your gut brain. That's an actual part of our physiology. It's a part of our anatomy. So intuition isn't just like a hunch or something that you might think. It's an actual. We actually have a compass that we're not meant to operate to the exclusion of the rational mind, but a huge counterbalance. And what we develop, part of the what I describe as the restoration of the magic of being a human being, is that life is significantly transformed when we cultivate that energy, when we begin to tune into that intelligence with the understanding that it is empirical, that it's plugged into a network within the earth, and that network extends from the cosmos and the inner world, that chi rises up, it comes down, that we're part of that network and we're receiving information. I think the challenge for people right now is that Shiva, the crown chakra, they're not, many people, that's not operating.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's very sluggish. So we're trying to navigate the third dimension. We're trying to navigate this world solely through information, and we weren't really meant to function that way. When you see things like birds flying in unison, that's called morphic resonance. That's an intelligence, the ability to be guided by nature and to know, that we have all of these systems upon systems in our body that are acting intelligently, that there's creative, intelligent activity all around us, and we live within that intelligence. But we've been, as Catherine said, we've been socialized away from it. But the blueprint of getting back in alignment is so strong, and we connect with that through the breath. And I'm going to let Catherine take it from there in terms of the effect of the breath and the life force and its power and ability to bring us back into alignment.
Yes.
Okay, so the breath does help us because the breath really is what life is breath. No matter how you think of it, whether it's a religious concept or a medical concept, without breath, we die very, very quickly. We lose our connection to this world. But the breath also is a consciousness and awareness. It represents a certain part of our intelligence. As you were saying, the gut has an intelligence, the breath has an intelligence. And as we breathe into the various areas of our body, we begin to activate and awaken that part of us to be able to connect with the information that wants to be shared. So that intuitive nature, the root chakra nature, the lower dantian nature, when I see it as, energetically we can connect directly into the earth. But when you think of the earth, you're also thinking of the earth is its environment. For human beings, it's air. For fish, it's water. For other kinds of life, there are different kind of environments within the earth. And so when we are connecting to the earth, we're also connecting to the wisdom that the earth has to be able to create these environments. And when we get disassociated from that, then we end up in what they're calling the matrix. The matrix is that which is not connected to the earth, but something constructed only by the mind. And I think it's really a matter of breathing into the lower body to enliven it, to awaken it. The breath brings you awareness, but it also brings you circulation of oxygen through the blood, circulation of the chi, so that your physical body becomes alive again. So what happens to many of us, well, we hold on to emotions, we hold on to experiences, and each of these emotions and experiences, especially if they're repetitive, energetically get locked into the tissues of our body. And we'll find ourselves repeating those patterns because it's locked into the tissues of our body. And as we breathe and as we move through it, it kind of shakes things up and it allows it to be dispersed. And then we can reconnect to the true energy that's meant to be flowing in those areas of the body. So a person who has been, say, abused, they will continue to resonate abusive relationships.
Mm-hmm.
If a
Yeah.
person who has been holding a lot of grief or whatever that emotion is, will keep resonating it because energetically we project in a field far beyond our physicality. So if you're holding on to resentments or hatreds or fears, that's not just in your body, it resonates beyond you.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a magnet that attracts these experiences over and over again. And even though we can, with our mind, try to change it, oh, I'm going to do an affirmation, I'm going to say things in a certain way, it will have some impact. But we really need to energetically clear out some of that old stuff. And when we breathe, that allows us to at least reach that area, to be able to experience it, to know that it's there, to understand, well, there's actually nothing wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
My pipes are clogged. It's that kind of thing.
The pipes are, I like that. You know
So
what? I
yeah,
was
so
gonna
the
go
breath
ahead.
is life.
I was gonna say that you it reminded me of two movies while you ladies were talking. The Matrix, of course, which I recommend everyone would go back and look at because there were subliminal messages in there. And the other movie was, I think it was the Avatar. There was a scene where they were around a tree and it appeared to be that they were grounding or going into the ground and getting downloads and information. So I just want to say sometimes you see movies and there's messages in there that'll help you to connect with what they're
Well, I
saying so that
know the scene that you're referring to, and that's a very root. There's a lot of root chakra symbolism in Avatar as a movie, because one of the things that the community, the creatures do,
Mhm.
is they use ceremony. They connect with each other to connect with the earth, and all peoples do that. Tree drums are made from trees.
Mm.
You know, and they have an intelligence. And in some societies, the individuals that were the drummers had to have a relationship with the tree spirits to be able to ask the trees consent if they could make a drum and make a drum that and the rhythm, which is, I talk about how do you distinguish between the sacred and the profane, in terms of things like music and intimacy. What makes it sacred? What is the difference between, because it's the same, because the mechanics can be similar. The sacred is emergent, it's creative, it's healing. Something comes forth from that, whereas the profane creates the type of loop that Catherine just described. We're an addictive society, and so many of the things that keep us in the rhythm of those loops that we cannot resolve, we live in an environment that perpetuates them. So we really have to consciously, deliberately step outside of that. We move our consciousness from it, from being external to internal. But back to the avatar is that the collective power of the people, that scene where they are working, that's a very powerful thing. And that's very root chakra. That's something common in many cultures, where the drum, dancing, those things that are done in uniform that connect the people and connect their power. And when they connect with the earth, wherever spirit descends upon is the voice of the earth on behalf of the people. It could be a child, it could be anyone. Churches were originally circles and not one person at the top speaking to an audience, more of dance, drumming, alternate state. Spirit descends upon us, and we're literally, and people were, indigenous people literally experience the sense of community and oneness was an actuality. And there's a lot, and that's what makes us feel safe. Our connection to the earth, our connection to, I grew up in I believe a more community-centered society than exists today. And the concentration of the individual on the individual is recent. It's not how we've lived as human beings. We haven't been living in such a me-focused environment for a very long time. And it's very difficult. I admire and have compassion for people that were born in the last 40 years or so, because, when it comes to root chakra, when the individuals that I work with, it's the energy work, the reading in terms of how energy is moving through the life. It is the energy work. It's the direction of the energy in their life. But people also need very practical support in mundane things, that if you have a product that you can tap into the manufacturing industry globally, if you're teaching, that people within certain communities, the root chakra energy is very, very narrow. There's not a lot of resources and money moving within those communities, or resources in general, because of the lack of community. Yeah. And there are other milieux where, where not only do resources flow easily, that there's a lot of waste. There's a tremendous amount of financial waste, particularly in this country, and so, all levels have to be addressed. As Catherine said, the energetic level, but it is more than a notion to open up an energy center. Because what happens when we open up an energy center that's been sluggish, or energy has not been moving, it's going to translate into a life experience. Yes. And one of the things about the heart is that when the heart opens up, it reveals secrets to us that we've been hiding from ourselves. That's why it's so difficult to open up that center. Yes. Because what first comes out is what you repressed because it was so painful. Mm-hmm. And what your shadow has been structured around, and people can be very, very invested, so invested in hiding from the heart energy that they don't even know that they're hiding from the heart energy. They identify the shadow that's been created as who they are. And that's when that occurs, there is always a corresponding life experience that's demanding the person's attention. You're not going to read someone's energy and the heart energy or the root chakra energy, because the root chakra energy is very powerful. The first two chakra energies are very powerful because we experience them. That's where our reproductive organs are. So we experience that longing, and the hormones associated. We experience adrenaline. We can really feel that. We can really feel testosterone. We can really feel that energy. The challenge is, or what's before us, is to bring that energy here, to bring it here. And what does that feel like? What does that feel like? And it's on an individual basis. Some people, it can be ecstasy. And for some people, it could be profoundly painful. Because we live in a world right now where, people, it's so common that people experience horrific things during their childhood, that they've clothed because it was just too painful. It was just too painful to experience. And when we open up to that, it's if I see someone, if someone comes to me and their heart energy is extremely low, and after the energy work is done, it does not begin to move, and they just can't make money. They just can't, in terms of, then that's when I know that they need another type of help. They need a safe environment to process that through.
Right.
Mm.
Right. Wow. I just wanted to give you guys the viewers a little bit of a very simple examples that you might have experienced in your childhood when you were growing up. So let's say, for example, you grew up in your household and there were money problems, and you witnessed or you saw mom and dad arguing over money, or you maybe you couldn't get the name brand clothes or the book bag that you wanted, or maybe you saw something where they couldn't pay the rent and they're having this argument back and forth with the landlord, or maybe even being evicted where the sheriff is at the door removing you from your household, or you might witness them arguing with the bill collectors over the phone, borrowing money back and forth with the family members. All of these things, if you're experiencing as a child, you're not an adult, so you don't fully interpret it the way that the adult who you're watching interpret it. So you may even grow up not really thinking that this is not trauma, this is not a big deal, this is, just something that happens. Even my neighbors and, the other children that I grow up with, they're all experiencing the same thing also. And so you become an adult who's now you're worried about money. You may be fearful of losing your job, to the extent of, what you're paranoid with getting to the job and making sure that everything is intact, making sure you're listening to the boss, worrying about paying your rent because you don't want to get evicted because that's some sort of trauma that's connected to what you saw with your parents. The fear of becoming homeless, not having a place to stay, or maybe you even begin to argue with your bill collectors and your landlord, and it's a headache to have to deal with all of these things. This is part of the trauma that you experience and you witness with your parents, and maybe they also experience that with their parents. So it goes on and on and on without us taking the time to sit back and observe and try to learn how to break this cycle, how to get out of it. And so you grew up with your parents saying, oh, you've got to take care of this children, you've got to get this job, you've got to, some of them are, you've got to take care of the grandparents also. And so you grew up with all this pressure on you and this anxiety that's building up on you to perform and to do things. And maybe you don't want a job, maybe you want to be a psychic reader, maybe you want to serve psychedelics. Maybe you want to teach yoga and meditation. Maybe you want to start your own business. But all of that fear and anxiety of, these type of careers.
That's collective.
Yes.
The fear of not having income,
Yes.
the fear of not having financial security is a part of the collective consciousness of this society.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you grew up in a household that was financially solvent, you could have grown up in the upper middle class, but the pressure to get into an Ivy League school, and to maintain a certain, we live in the matrix. I mean, as compared to cultures that were concerned about the soul of the individual, like Yoruba, the technology of Yoruba that speaks in terms of the Ori, the head. Who is this soul that's coming into our community? And what are they here to do? What are their qualities, and how can the community as a whole support their beingness and their finding their place within the whole? It's I mean, we're faced with system after system after system, beginning with things that have been normalized, like to give your children to the government when they're still children, to be raised by people that don't love them, is not normal for human beings. People that don't look like you, people that don't love and care for you, are not supposed to be your caregivers that you spend 8 hours a day with. That's not how we're meant to be as human beings. And that if you don't function well in that circumstance, and now that the education system now is taking control over the moral, ethical development of children, and undermining the parents of even having a voice and what their children and what what type of beliefs their children have. These things are not healthy. They're not. This isn't how human beings are meant to live. But the upside is that we're living in a time where more and more people are seeking alternative ways outside of those structures to live, and we will continue to do that. We will continue to do that. And it's not that you cannot find your way within the matrix. You can have a job and be true to yourself and be authentic. You can do that also. It doesn't mean you have to go off grid to recalibrate. But there are things: breathe, moving at your own pace, and being true to yourself. Just those three things, those are the first three movements in alchemical practice. And the third movement, the basis of how you make choices, incorporates how we're connected, how we're wired into the earth and the cosmos and the deeper energy fields that life is based upon, that you're bringing all of those things into play when you're true to yourself. People who are able to do that have a great deal of magnetism and charisma to be grounded in yourself. And that's all root chakra energy, that literally how the hips are grounded, the feet, the ball of the feet. There's a meridian at the ball of the foot. Well, not quite at the ball, where it's kidney 1, where we connect with our ancestral energy. And people are not always conscious of all of the anatomy that correlates to it, but they have a deep sense of themselves. And it makes for a very different experience of life. And that is very accessible. So I want to stress that to the listener, that with everything that we're experiencing right now, you can connect and live at a frequency where you're in the world and not of it, and you're not trapped. You're not trapped in the matrix. You can live in the matrix. You don't have to be trapped and enslaved by it.
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree. You know, I wanted to tap on something like the decisions that we make when it comes to like our children. That part of the root chakra, when it's imbalanced, or we're experiencing something where the trauma is connected to the root chakra, that's part of us making those decisions that don't feel right with us, that don't necessarily resonate with us, but we still do it. We still, like, I know a young lady who had the baby, and at 2 months old she was back at work dropping the baby off at the daycare. And
Well, society is compelling. I mean, it's look what people are up against. You know, though people who people who want to be true to themselves and attempt that, very often end up defaulting into fear-based decisions because it's difficult.
mm,
It's not an easy thing to do. See, because this is the thing that I've observed. I mean, in a real grounded, practical way. Most of my clients over the close to 50 years that I've been doing this work are people who do want to make truth-based choices.
mm-hmm,
My clients are all healers and people who are seeking an alternative lifestyle. Very often they've had challenges with their family, where, they are the archetype very often of the scapegoat. That's difficult. It's difficult for them sometimes within the educational system because the visionary archetype very often functions and different than other children.
mm-hmm.
It's there's so many things that you would think are the truth, and it's not true. Like, we don't live in a meritocracy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't live in a society that the harder you work, the greater the reward. That's not true.
No.
I see people that are visionaries get stuck because they feel that if they can only get their family to understand and see what they're experiencing, they would comply. But that also is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Very often, when you are resonant at a different frequency than the people around you, and you're trying to be yourself, that you get a lot of pushback. You get a lot of pushback. So it's not an easy path.
Mm-hmm.
And I remind myself of it because everything that I just mentioned, that's experience. That's not stuff, that I read somewhere. That's stuff that I personally experienced and witnessed others experiencing. And everyone didn't make it through. Everyone didn't make it through because it's nuanced and it is, it's challenging, which is why one of my favorite things to say is what we need now most is each other, and the masters left the template. We were left with instruction as to how to get through this. And it's in Christianity also, more in the Gnostic traditions than perhaps what most people are experiencing in the church community as Christianity, but the information is there, but it's not always easily discernible because even now metaphysics and alchemy has been co-opted.
Yes.
There's so much half truth in the collective environment that people that are searching for the truth have okay, all I have to do is set my intentions, work real hard, put my energy into it, I'll manifest it. And what they're actually doing is casting spells against themselves. And life is getting harder and harder because they're being told, they're being given information that tends them to ignore the reality of their life.
Exactly.
In a practical way, and the resistance and I mean this is, it's good. Krishna said when it's the darkness, the light shines.
Mm-hmm.
But so much of the ancient systems is misrepresented right now. People are trying. People
Yes.
are trying with all their heart and soul and work effort, but a lot of the information they're being given is just not accurate. And I'm not saying that those people are malicious. I think that a lot of them don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Mm,
I agree with you.
mm.
I agree with
I
you.
would I would like you said so many powerful things. I wanted to go back for a minute to what we were saying about the root and the intuition in the gut. I think fundamental to people's fear is because they can't connect to what's real. And so, as we were talking about communities supporting each other, sustaining each other, but also recognizing that a person comes into the world with a special gift or special something that's unique to themselves, that if they follow that germ of information, it can in many ways guide them through the matrix. And so just like the drum comes from the tree, there's a way in which the ancient healers, the shaman, would be able to talk to the plants and see which one had healing properties. And I think that once we begin to realize that we can make this really fundamental connection to true reality, and when we can begin to
Yes.
be operate with that kind of root connection, so that we understand that what our gut is telling us is actually that direction is not safe for you, this direction is safe for you. And if we can trust our guts to tell us, even in a relationship, I was talking about people radiate. You can pick that up and you can say, well, he might be real handsome or she might be real cute, but there's something really ugly in this energetic field. And so
Okay,
when we
yeah,
can,
okay, Catherine, are you just like reading right now? Because I think that's something everybody can relate to. Where,
Been
yeah,
there,
okay,
yeah,
done that.
I mean, it's like, and when we, if we could connect to that fundamental understanding that we have this power within ourselves, then we wouldn't have to walk in fear. And we can begin to have some confidence in ourselves that, okay, I can trust this compass that's in my gut. And I can understand that this job is or is not right for me. I can understand that this person is or is not right for me, or this experience. And And so that's an important capacity that we can connect to through this work that we're talking about.
in the moment, in,
Yeah, so that you can really read a
in the
situation and
moment,
trust what you're reading
mhm,
in the moment. You're correct.
in the moment, right
And
now, your
mhm,
life will give you. You'll feel it in your enteric nervous system, which is ruled by the root chakra.
mhm,
The root chakra rules over the large intestines, which where's 90% of the serotonin in the body is produced in the gut. So you get a sense of well-being that's physical when you're doing the right thing. And when
mhm,
you're not, it's a physiological experience. You can feel it. It's the acid in the stomach. It is a physiological registration in your biology that says this is not in your best interest.
yeah,
We can start small with that and then build on it. We don't have to get a divorce, or we can unwind in the small by making small intuitive choices on a daily basis, and see the result of that, and build our faith and trust in reality.
mhm.
Mm.
Exactly. And like you said, it's the breath and the breath awareness, so
Yes.
that you can pick it up and you can have that, just like the ancient shaman could pick up from a plant its message. We can pick up from our own body, from our own gut, from our own energy, what it's saying to us. It's a
Exactly.
different language, but it's speaking to us. And
Always.
when we begin to make those connections internally, we can plant our feet firmly on the earth. We don't have to be concerned that if I don't take this job, I won't be led to the right one. We
Mhm.
don't have to be concerned, grasping at what looks right. And we can really begin to understand and move in directions and have
And
a level of self trust.
Bliss, that's the answer to the question that you said. You said someone, she has a new baby and she's here going off to work. And, it's because people are afraid. The fear of not having income in this society is tremendous.
Tremendous.
It's no joke to think of, because we're not a community where the community will take care of you in the event that you don't have income. I mean, the results of not having income can be, horrific. So people, and then we're socialized. It's that, and it's also the socialization, that starts very, very young, that you have to follow this track to be able to survive.
Yes.
Yeah, but also I would say for the young parents who have no choice to put their children into daycare, if you could understand fundamentally, just like you need to um, connect to your gut, is to provide opportunities for your child to be real with you about how they feel about that experience.
Oh, God.
It's to be able to give your child some kind of confidence in themselves so that you could begin to affirm what their feelings are, whatever they are, so that they learn to trust what they know. Because I promise you, the younger a child is, the more they know. The
Mm.
problem with children is
Wow.
that
Wow.
we get ripped from our self knowing
Mhm.
as we go through these systems. But if you're sending your child to school and then you come, when they come home, really make space for them to be creative, to allow them to vent their grievances or their desires, or just like the ancient tribal leaders and parents wanted to know what a child with their talents were.
Mhm.
We have to give our children an opportunity to explore that for themselves. And when I see a lot of young people who are young adults, I would say, they've never had that experience. It's
Mhm.
always the parent putting their desires into the
Yes.
child, and then the child being sent off on a trajectory that if they don't follow it, they face shame, they face rejection.
Right.
And so we can begin to turn that around, even though we might not be able to turn around the actual situation of needing to work and needing to have income, and begin to, in a manner of speaking, reparent ourselves and begin that exploration. Well, if I could be, I mean, I was very blessed as a young person because I was allowed to do what to dilly dally, go to art school, do this, do that. But we all can look back and say, what was I like when I was 4? What was I like when I was 7?
Mhm.
What what attracted me then? And as we begin to re-explore that, we can begin to reawaken it. And a lot of the pain that we experience is the suppression of that. So there's a way in which we're hiding from all this stuff, not because it's bad, but because we were taught to be ashamed of something that we are. So even though there's a bridge where you experience that pain of the shame and the rejection, if once we get through that memory, that sort of muscle cellular memory,
Mhm.
we dip into the truth of who we really are. So it's not like there's something evil underneath it. the evil was what happened to us, but
But
underneath that is the
it's
purity of what
yeah,
we are.
it's and that's the answer to your question, Bliss, that you asked about men and the heart. You know, the fear of, it's the first two. Actually, the principle of gender sexuality exists on all levels, on all of not just the seven chakras that people are aware, but we have untold numbers of chakras,
Yes.
centers and crosses in the body, but they do concentrate and distill down into those seven. So that's the seven is a good foundation, but it's, you know, I want to put two things into this narrative. And one is that it took us a long time. It took generations for us to even get to this point where where we are saying that we can look at life and to begin to think about it in a different way. My parents didn't even question the society in which they live. They accepted it as being normal, and my grandparents even more. So if we view where we are from the point of a continuum and the direction that we're going in, that we are moving towards that direction, and dovetailing on what Catherine is saying, just said, is that many of us don't know what it feels like to be who we are. The connection to reality and what that feels like, to be able to make choices and move through life authentically, is not a common experience in the society in which we live. Even amongst the meditators and the vegans and people that, to be able to connect with that. And the root chakra, one of the things, and this is not what I intend on saying, but it is meaningful, that when I look at someone's chart and I see, and they're telling me that they've written a book, and there's so many ways to do a book right now. There's so many ways to do that. We're no longer at the control of publishing companies, and that there's so many ways that you can be creative. That people they'll be in touch with their creativity. They'll be in touch with what they want to do and bring forth, but to feel comfortable interacting outside of the energy field that they're comfortable with. I would say to a client that this is a wonderful product. You can contact the product development people in a corporation, or you need to connect with manufacturing and find out what is the licensing protocol, if it makes more sense for you to license this out, or whether it makes more sense. That people aren't socialized to do that. If they've grown up in a community of people who had very low root chakra energy, they're not socialized in that way. So they end up having very, very, very difficult approaches to be financially free, because they don't know how to access the society that they live. They don't know how corporate governance works. And even if they know that, the socialization of feeling comfortable doing that, the fear on that root chakra level will come up. It's like, how do you pick up the phone and interface with that aspect of society? That's socialization. Everyone doesn't have that socialization. And then on top of that, if you don't have that socialization and if you show up in something like the entertainment industry with phenomenal talent, but you're not socialized, we live in a predatory society. Your talent will be used. Yep. And so and you don't know about contracts, and what I'm saying is people don't know how to be financially independent. It's not a simple thing, so there were years where I'm a salesperson by trade in my mainstream life. I'm retired from that. But over time, the healing work and the business work integrated more and more because business development, financial management, those things. I grew up in a community where that was populated by people that type of information and socialization was deliberately kept from them. In addition to laws that undermine their progress, not on top of that. So I think when we look at each other, judgment resides in the liver, and the liver is the seat of the soul, an aspect of the soul. And when we look at each other in that way, in terms of we should be doing more than what we're doing, I think that, that we should maybe take into consideration just how much we have been up against because it's been tremendous. That and we're moving into a historical epoch cosmically, and I won't go into the planetary configurations, but I'll mention Pluto and Aquarius. The time that we're in empowers humanity, and we'll be under that influence. That's a major, long, slow aspect that will last for 20 years, where there will be more support for the individual. And part of the magic of that, part of the experience of it, is that when you are able to begin to do all of the things that Catherine mentioned, empower yourself, be true to yourself, and be comfortable with not knowing and asking questions and getting the information that you need, those pathways that open, there's more society, there will be in the coming years, in the coming decades, more societal support for people to do that. We're polarizing as a society. On one hand, we're becoming highly digitalized with AI technology and the 15-minute city and people being more and more controlled and cashless society. And on the other hand, the polarization of it, you have tiny houses in agricultural communities and people taking advantage of ways they can be independent. So that will be more supportive to people in the years to come, starting now.
Well, that's beautiful. One of the thing I wanted to mention, because on the one hand we're talking about kind of the social expression, the business and economic expression of our life, and that's really important. But I wanted to say that the same principles we're talking about also have to do with health, well-being, and lifespan. A lot of
Yeah,
these, like you were talking about, the emotions that we're holding in the organs, the blockages that we're holding, are also what's leading us to have high blood pressure and diabetes and
absolutely.
tumors and cancers and all manner of compromising to our immune system. So it's sometimes we have to work on that facet as well to be able to understand that when we're doing this connecting, when we're doing the deep breathing, when we're opening up to what our true needs are, then we can begin to counter the more addictive behaviors that drive us into illness and other kinds of problems, depression. So I think that it's such a wide
Absolutely.
spectrum. And I would say to people to start where you are. I mean, if you understand that your family has this tendency and you're showing signs, start working in that context. I really need to make myself optimally strong and well as educate myself on how to do these contracts and how to exist in the world in a successful way. Because one of the things that I see that has really been a plague to humanity is the consequence of all this stress, not to mention all the poisons in our food and water and air,
Mhm.
have driven the human body to a place where it's almost like a catatonic state, a walking zombie. People don't have the strength and the energy to even contemplate what they could do creatively. And so I think that if people can begin to really understand where they are in the moment, prioritize the greatest need first, and really think about those things, though, maybe it's walking every day, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's qigong, maybe it's just the breathing exercises, and begin to understand, like, just like you nurture a plant, you have to nurture the physical body. Just like you feed your pets, excuse me, we have to feed ourselves in a way that makes us as strong and as whole as we can be. And with that strength and with that balancing of the root, then our brain can begin to function as it should,
I think
instead of
I think that's the
the
benediction.
gut brain and the head brain and the heart brain all need to function and be harmonized with each other. But in order to do that, we have to attend to our physical well-being is underlying everything, which is another part of the root. If you don't have a strong functioning physical, you can't have a strong functioning anything else.
I, I
And
think I think Miss Bliss, I think what Catherine just said is the benediction. Start from where you are.
Yeah.
yeah,
Whatever is pressing in your life's attention, take that journey. To embark upon that journey that's calling whatever going on in your health, your well-being. Start from where you are. Start from where you are. That's such a powerful message because I think very often people overlook where they are and we seek to start from another place. It's like if you want to walk out the door, you have to actually walk to the door and go through it. You can't start at you have to start from where you are because where you are is the point of gravity that the universe is designed for you to unfold to guide you back to alignment. So yeah, that's
Uh,
you have a
so
you
we
have a question.
So sometimes I can't breathe when I'm nervous. Is that the root chakra? So it's so funny because that you have this question because I was doing a qigong practice session with Catherine and she was saying, I think you said be in the mind of Buddha or something like that, and
Hmm.
literally and she was like, just ignore everything around you, just be in this space. And literally, it was a freaking like siren outside. And, you got all this chaos going on and all this stress going on. And, people are stressed, they're nervous, they have sleep issues, breathing disorder, anxiety. And then you have to try to be one with the universe. So I don't know if you guys want to like respond to this comment, but I kind of relate. I definitely relate.
Yeah, I would like to respond. I think the lungs, what happens, the relationship to the root is like the root tightens, the gut tightens, and that tightening reaches up through the body, tightening from underneath the lungs, and you just can't get your breath in there because there's so much agitation. But one of the simple things that you can do is, if you remember, as a fetus, we were able to breathe through our navel. And the truth is, we still can. So rather than trying to force the air down, you visualize your breathing actually inhaling through the navel. And then energetically, you start to open up from below where there's not so much, and it counters the resistance. So if you're breathing in, and then as you're breathing out through your navel, you're taking that tight nervousness and expelling it from your body. And it's just a simple exercise that we can do to calm the nerves that we're holding below in the navel and
Mhm.
create the space for the lungs to open up.
Mm. Wow, thank you.
that was excellent. I don't have anything to add to that.
Hey Cynthia, how are you, Cynthia? So yeah, so that's a good response. Thank you so much because I can relate to when I was doing that exercise. So that helps me, and then that helps Mrs. Tate also. So I want to like talk about like other ways to work with the root chakra and to heal from the trauma, the ancestral trauma, to engage with the feeling of feeling safe and secure, tap into your resources, your resourceful side in connection to your ancestors, because I was also sort of entangled with the idea of that the root is also connected to your lineage, to your DNA. And so someone was expressing to me, like, you know how when you see someone and they say, oh, they're a natural talent, and when you go back and you look, this is something that was in their ancestry, and somehow, some way, they were able to tap into it. Like you would see like a line or a lineage of farmers, or the contractors or the electricians, and then the sons and the grandsons and the great great grand, like it's like this whole line, and they're somehow tapping into that ancestry line. I mean, from the good side, because I think also they can tap into the negative side too. Which, so how do you kind of figure out? I want to tap into my ancestry through my root, and I want to get the positive side, as opposed to somehow gravitating to the trauma and then the negative aspects of our ancestors, our mothers, our fathers, our parents and grandparents. Like, is there any way to navigate and pick and choose, or do you just have to just deal with whatever's coming at you?
Yeah, well, I think in general, well, for one, in terms of where does that energy reside, the first two chakras, well, the chakras flow into each other. It's not like, the Western mind thinks in a very linear way, but the mulahada means root, and svadhisthana means the place of my own dwelling, and root is earth, and sacral is water, and they're very connected, in terms of, you'll look at some charts and it'll assign the reproductive organs to the root chakra. Some charts will assign it to the sacral chakra. But our ancestral energy is really more connected to what's called our essence, or our jing, which is an aspect of the life force that resides in our kidney energy.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of how we're formed, the qualities that we have, and absolutely, we're effects of causes that came before us. So absolutely, we have qualities that are, ancestral qualities that are beneficial, and then we have qualities that require healing and recalibration, and just in life in general, that we want to cultivate our gifts. The root is both creative and destructive.
Mm.
And because when you look at where it is, it resides right between the reproductive organs and the anus, and it has to do with both of those things. But in life, when something is breaking down, when something is destructive, because life is eternal, something else is always trying to be born. No, it's no absolute destruction that is the end. So if there's something in our ancestral line that is counterproductive or destructive to us as individuals, through learning and growing from that experience or that quality, something else is born. So something, if you were born into a family of alcoholics, if you came into a family of alcoholics, well, then, you have, your family has kidney issues. Their connection to the ancestral energy is may not good, but in the process of the journey of you, if you have fallen into that, your recovery process, something will emerge out of that. Something always emerges. Healing is emergent. Creative energy is emergent. Life is eternal and everlasting. Anytime you have a balancing of masculine and feminine energy, and they come together and they create, a third thing is born. That's why the number 3 in sacred geometry rules over creativity. That's one of the numbers in the energy that Tesla talked about a lot. The 3 and the 6 and the 9, because it's emergent energy. It expands the universe. So we're all dealing with counterproductive aspects of who we are. We all may find it challenging when I'm in a destructive cycle right now. I'm in a 9 personal year. There are structural things in my life, in my body, that are causing that are coming to my attention. Years ago, I had ulcerative colitis. I was on steroid therapy for a long time. It undermined the structure of my body, which is very root chakra. And the journey of finding a dentist, I'm going to either go out of the country or out of the state at least to have my dental work. But I'm immersed in that journey. I'm also finishing up a lot of writing that I've been working on for that. So it's for the past 9 years. The point that I'm making is the counterproductive, destructive aspects of ourselves. If we immerse ourselves in that cycle, what it always does is it takes us to another level. It's emergent, and money definitely flows like that, particularly if you're self-employed. Nothing in life just keeps going up and up and up. The process of creativity and destruction and waves, or the interaction between yin and yang when they're balanced, they have different positions to each other in different points in the life cycle. You can't avoid those cycles. So even people that are very wealthy, their money fluctuates, everything fluctuates, because life flows, in ways. And that's it. The point is that cultivate the creative, the talents, and that which is destructive or not creative or not life affirming, embrace it as an opportunity for emergence, for growth and development, because they're both present in all of us. We can't avoid that. Or at least I've never come across a circumstance where, someone just inherited wonderful things from their ancestors and that was it. Particularly, now. This
Yeah, I agree. And I would say that you can't avoid it. But I think you can approach it from the perspective of, what are you telling me? What is this negative impulse or memory or tendency? What is it saying to me?
Yes.
What is the actual message? And if we can catch on to the message before we get depleted, then we can begin to circumvent it earlier on in that pathway. And I'm very much like you, Diane. I've reached a point where I've begun to recognize the fragility of age and how you become so much more vulnerable, and things that you could ignore, you can't anymore. And things that you may have gotten signs of and you're like, weren't paying attention to it. The earlier we can pay attention to those signs, I think we can begin to, change direction and do something about it. And also energetically and sort of shamanically, when we heal those things from the past, we're not just healing ourselves, it's the spirit of those who are past who also are healed. So there's a way in which they're reaching out to you and us to be able to transform that energy, so they are not continuing to carry it forward in those other experiential realms. So it becomes a partnership. So it's not to be feared, it's to be understood.
And then this is an important point. It's wonderful that you asked that question, Bliss, and what Catherine's response, because what I'm seeing a lot is that people are aware of their greatness. That when the ancient systems began to, in many ways, in my memory, and maybe I would say like the late 50s, when I first heard Olatunji's Drums of Passion, and I began to know people that were being initiated into African systems, people responded very strongly to, yes, I am more than this. I am a priest. I am a healer. I am a psychic. I am all of those. Oh, those things. People identify with those things very strongly. Um, what they don't identify with so much is that I'm wounded. I'm healing.
I'm wounded. I'm traumatized. I'm going through it. I can't figure it out.
Because it was so delicious when people who have been told that they're not enough and something's inherently wrong with them, it was so desirable to be able to take on the persona of greatness. And what I've seen since, over the decades since that time, is that the environment in some communities are not conducive for people to heal, because you're this, you're a priestess, or I'm a healer, or I do this, I'm a teacher, and that that the less desirable parts
Mm-hmm.
of ourselves. I personally make a point of talking about my journey. My journey began with a psychiatric hospitalization when I was 18 years old. I've seen and heard things all of my life, and there was nothing fashionable or trendy about that in the 60s. It was filled with, here in New York, there was a infamous institution, Kings County G Building. Well, I know that facility personally.
Brooklyn.
So it's to be, hospitalized, and the stigma was overwhelming. It was not, but it was, I mentioned that, and even when I talk about it at this point in my life, it seems like ancient history. But I mention it because the truth, the people that I know, I'm surrounded by healers. Some of my closest friends are healers and priests and have been in this work for decades. And I also was the go-to reader in the community for decades. I used to read, whereas my work now is fundamentally healing and really helping people be themselves for a living. There was a period of time where I did a lot of psychic work. So I know where the bones are buried in a lot of people's lives. And I can tell you that it is those amongst us that are the iconic and the greatest, that their challenges in life are astronomical. Where I've experienced the people that I've worked with, that their life work does deliver them to a place of visibility. What they've experienced and the concentration of challenges and resistance in their life is much greater than what you would describe someone that doesn't have that kind of calling in their lives. But it's not spoke of. It's not spoke of. What we talk about is the end result. Mm-hmm. After the book has been published, after the person has become iconic in community. But I've never met anyone, and I don't even know how many people I've read over the decades. I wouldn't even know. If I sat down and tried to do some math, I could probably do a guesstimation. But I have never met anyone who achieved a lot that they did not also overcome a lot, in my experience. So it needs to be mentioned, particularly after things like The Secret came out, because we the ideology of that, all you have to do is set intention and think about it and being,
Everybody was doing that, and it wasn't working. They was like, "What's wrong? Why isn't it working?"
And it was, and it's still a part, set intention and grind culture, work, put the energy in, and that there's nothing, none of the ancient systems support that. Alchemy does not support that. Physics does not support that. Things that I hear people talk about in terms of how you remedy trauma. Like there's a large conversation now that certain activities heal trauma. And right now, what we really have is we have a tremendous problem with when people are using externalization to self-soothe themselves. What actually happens in the body is addiction. When you're doing social media, or when you're doing grind, or when you have or even pleasure, what happens, and the alchemical concept of pleasure is different than the Western idea, but what actually happens in the body is that the dopamine receptors get weak. Our pleasure center, the hormone that rules over pleasure, achieving, that gives us a sense of satisfaction, we have achieved something, that's dopamine in the brain. When you're constantly stimulating that, but it's not through a grounded, healthy process, that's the predisposition for addiction. And because your dopamine receptors become weaker and weaker, so you need greater stimulation to get that same feeling, and then it's counterproductive. Addiction are things that you get a short-term sense of feeling good, but in the long term, it undermines the person's life, them physiologically. And we've become that as a society because we shop, we eat, we have sex, we talk, we vent. We're constantly stimulating dopamine to the point that it takes so much stimulation to feel alive that people begin to do the maleficent. People have to do horrible, unspeakable things to feel alive. So the information in terms of what we're talking about and how we heal, that there's no, it's not supported. The science does not support that. So when it comes to what you're asking, what about your ancestral energy that's not so good, is that very often that part of ourselves is being anesthetized with drugs in some sort. Because addiction, we're addicted as a society. Chemical addiction is only a small part of the spectrum of addiction. If you're in a loop, and Catherine described that loop very earlier very well, if you're in a loop, that means that your neurons, your brain has gotten into a loop where, like, people experience a need to be right, that feels like the meaning of life for them. They must be right. And they respond with fight or flight to something that challenges their belief system. So this is the information, the misinformation, right now is immense. I always encourage people, refer yourself to the ancient systems and make correlation between those systems and the science. Ask if the science, look, and even with that requires a discerning eye. Because when people say I did the research, I'm like, you didn't do the research. You read someone else's research. Funded their research.
Yes.
Was their research falsified or not? So it has to, like with The Secret, it has to come down to, we can immerse ourselves in ideologies that feel good, that are not working for us. If you're doing something on a regular basis and you're not getting a good result, then it should be questioned.
Right. Absolutely. Isn't that the definition of insanity when you do something over and over and over again?
Mhm. It is, and that quote has been connected to several different people. But again, I go back to, the wonderful thing about compassion and understanding is that it triggers your higher mind. When you seek to understand the causal, what in yoga is called the koshas, understanding is a higher aspect. And when we don't just look at why something is, how something is, but why it is insanity. But we live in an environment
Mm-hmm.
that's insane. The bar right now for mental health is extremely low,
Yes.
considering what's required of us to survive.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. 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 Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So in closing, do you guys want to give any recommendations for anyone? I have your email scrolling at the bottom. I know, Diana Farr, you said you're only taking one-on-one
Yes.
clients right now, consultations, and Catherine, you're doing classes with groups of people.
Yeah, actually, next week, Tuesday, I have a free introduction on 7 p.m. for people who want to do it's Qigong self care, how to use the breathing and movement practices to heal and to make those connections that we were talking about. So people are welcome to connect to me and find that out. You can go to the website daoqigonglife.com or email and I'll send a link.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
My
Let me
information is there. People can email me. I am taking individual one-on-one clients. Group is closed right now because of what I mentioned before. What I can do one-on-one, I can either work with an individual and help them with the actual aspect of their life, but to do it in a group format with people coming in and out is not working. And I've set a goal that it is very root chakra. This people having issues with their finances, it's emotional. It's none of the thing. It's emotional and it's energetic. It's
Hmm.
emotional and energetic. It is not grind. It is not that you're not working hard enough. It's not the website. It's not, all of the things that people are investing their energy in.
Mhm.
That's not what it is. It's emotional and energetic. If you're operating on a frequency where you're having difficulty in that area and you look around you
Mhm.
and you're in a social or business milieu where people are also having that challenge, vibration creates geography. You're in an energy field occupied by people that are working out the creative aspect of their beingness, their root chakra energy. And whatever it is with the individual, I find people need very direct support in resolving that. It's not an easy thing. So,
Hmm. Wow.
and I
Okay.
would definitely encourage people, if Catherine is hosting a free um, intro, work with energy in some way, because information does not change your energy. Changing your energy changes your energy. You need
Changing
to
your energy changes your energy, guys.
changing your energy. You have to be working with your energy in some way. The end of this my one-on-one session is energy work, and then alchemical formula to continue to move that energy, because you have to change the energy. So take advantage of Catherine's free workshop. I'd highly recommend it.
Yes, yes, guys. So you see the email scrolling at the bottom. Let me post really fast the websites again for Catherine and I if you guys want to reach out. Get that energy moving, that energy in motion. Get the qigong and the breathing, and of course, if you want to work with Dinah Farr, reach out for her to her for a one-on-one. I actually do a little bit of hula hooping too, actually, guys. So that kind of helped me, and I've been eating my red foods, the pomegranates, the raspberries, the paprika, the red peppers, and all of that stuff. So, it's a lot of things you can kind of do to help you, but you definitely want to change your energy and learning how to do that.
Those are great recommendations. That hula hoop thing, hula hoops are great.
Yes, yes, yes.
Particularly, well, actually for men and women.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful exercise to move that energy in the lower part of the body, the lower chakras and the lower Dan Chan. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. So that's all we have for this evening. I know this is very helpful. So thank you for joining us, guys. Have a beautiful night. And we'll see you on the next show, right? Yeah, life is beautiful.